How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm comparing and contrasting three different speakers, two of which I've owned for quite a few years, and one is a new acquisition. No, I'm not succumbing to GAS, which is gear acquisition syndrome. I simply wanted to see if grass is greener on the other side. I have to tell you right at the beginning that grass is not greener on the other side. So I'm kind of giving away the conclusion right at the beginning of this video. Now this KEF Q-150 or Q-150 is a speaker that is designed by KEF. Of course, KEF is pretty famous for having produced the LS50, which came to the market, I think, some 10 years ago or so. It had a revolutionary design, and there was a lot of design and engineering that went into that. And I don't claim for a moment that this sounds the same as LS50. I've never owned a pair of LS50. It's above my price range, my price bracket, and it's something that I can't afford at the moment. But I wanted to get a taste of what this design of speaker actually sounds like. Now, as I said, this is the Q-150, a different design compared to these more traditional design of speakers. This one is by Pioneer. This is the Andrew Jones design speaker. Now, Andrew Jones collaborated with Pioneer back in the days, and now he's collaborating with ELAC, and they're putting out some fantastic sounding speakers. And a few of those I've auditioned already. They sound pretty good. The ELAC, I think Unify B5 and B6, they sound excellent. But then the difference between those and the this Pioneer is very subtle. I didn't notice that big of a difference. So this compared to the Sony, I gotta say the Sony is the most neutral sounding of the bunch. And it's also the most accurately sounding pair of speakers I've listened to over the past few years. It's a tremendous value for the money. So I bought this pair some time ago, I think for close to $70, I gotta say. I think it was part of the Thanksgiving deals, Black Friday deals, I gotta say. And I was able to get an excellent deal for, as I said, I think it was less than $70, maybe $68. Which is fantastic value for the money, considering how great this pair actually sounds. Now, the Pioneer comes second with regards to accuracy of the sounds and creating this sort of immersive listening experience. And KEF, I gotta say, comes at the bottom of the pecking order. I don't know, for some reason, it sounds a bit dull, sounds a little bit uninteresting. Now, one thing I got to tell you that I don't really subscribe to audiophile terms that a lot of people seem to throw about. Something like, this is a warm sounding speaker, this is a cold sounding speaker, this speaker sounds more musical. Now, these are subjective terms that I'm having a hard time comprehending. Now, what I'd like to do when I want to compare and contrast speakers is to have some tangible examples that people can try for themselves. And by tangible experience, I mean some criterion by which you can judge how these sound against one another. Meaning that you need to play the same exact music using these speakers at the same exact volume on your integrated amplifier, so you can come to a good conclusion as to what the differences are. Now, I'm an avid listener to classical music. I listen to classical music every day. I also love progressive rock, bands like Jethro, Tull, Pink Floyd, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson, Porcupine Tree, of course, Steven Wilson. So, and these are the kind of music that you need to have a system that creates a more immersive listening experience. So let's get started with classical music. the piece of music I gravitate towards when I want to really compare and contrast speakers is a piece by Cesar Franck, the great Belgian composer, who of course resided in France for many years. And it's called Les Eolides. I don't know how it's pronounced in French. I don't have that good of an understanding of the French language, but I'll put a description. I'll put the title actually down in the description so you can look up the music yourself, and maybe if you can pronounce it correctly, let me know how it's pronounced. But Les Eolides, that's what I call it. It's a symphonic piece that goes into different phases, and it has excellent dynamic range in the music. As I said, it's a symphonic piece. The orchestration is great. There's a lot of flute playing, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, and of course violin, viola. So the whole orchestra actually needs to be performing together. Now, one thing that is very important to me is when I listen to classical music is, I don't want to say it's analytical listening, but I want to be able to hear each instrument pretty accurately. In terms of accuracy of the sound, I got to say Sony completely outclasses KEF 150 or 150. And I don't want to say outclasses the Pioneer Andrew Jones design, but it does sound a lot better. So sound accuracy, of course, goes to Sony. And there's a section that the flute plays, and then the oboe actually follows that, and then the clarinet plays, and then the violin actually comes into the picture. That you can hear them pretty accurately when you listen through Sony. With KEF Q-150, sound, I don't know, it sounds as if everything is kind of combined, or the whole orchestra is kind of crunched together to create like a one or two dimensional sound. With Sony, it's more of a three-dimensional sound. As I said, a more immersive experience. And you can listen to each instrument pretty well. You can tell them apart very well. This is the flute, this is the oboe, this is the clarinet, and this is how they blend in together. With KEF, you don't hear that. With the Pioneer, it's there, but it doesn't sound as good as a Sony. So that takes me, of course, to soundstage and imaging. With Sony, as I said, it's a more immersive experience. The sound is coming from all directions. You can't really pinpoint exactly where the sound is coming from. With KEF, of course, you can say that, well, there's a speaker on the left and a speaker on the right, and I'm listening the sound through these two speakers. So my point of reference is in front of me. Whereas with respect to Sony, it's all over the place, which is beautiful. That's what you want when you listen to classical music. The Pioneer does a pretty good job. And the difference between Sony and Pioneer is not day and night. It's those small, subtle differences. But then, for me, it's enough to justify gravitating towards Sony compared to the Pioneer Andrew Jones design speaker. So the other thing I want to get into is the really dynamic range of the music. Now, this piece by Cesar Franck, which is the symphonic poem, Les Eolides, the music dictates a great dynamic range. You have the highs and the lows, and you want a system that actually does justice to the dynamic range that Franck had envisaged when he wrote that particular piece of music. That's what he wanted to convey to the audience, to go through all these different types of emotions to experience and appreciate the music better. So one thing I got to say is that it takes me to a point that I always tell myself that what matters to me as an audiophile is how much pleasure I derive from listening to music. Now, it's not pleasure in the sense of hedonistic pleasure, but what I mean is more of an uplifting, transcendental experience that elevates your mind and elevates your spirit. And that's what I experience when I listen to Sony. So with regards to dynamic range, that's what I wanted to get into, is that the Sony actually does justice to the music. You can hear, it's a very quiet actually speaker. You can hear those low, when the orchestra plays very slowly at a low volume, you can actually hear that. When they play at a pretty high volume, the orchestra is playing very intensely, you can tell that that's what's happening in the music. With KEF and with Pioneer, I have to say, to a lesser extent, is more bland. It's not as good as a Sony. And I was really, really let down by KEF. I was really looking forward to, try this pair of speakers and see how well they sound. And I'd really anticipated that this was going to be a great experience and this would completely outclass Pioneer and Sony. And it just didn't turn out to be the case, unfortunately. Now, as I said, with regards to dynamic range, Sony prevails hands down. And the other thing I want to get into is with progressive rock music. Now, the piece of music I tried to audition, with which I wanted to audition these three speakers, was a piece by Jethro Tull off of the Minstrel in the Gallery album, and it's called Black Satin Dancer. Now, it starts with the flute playing, and then Ian Anderson, the singer of Jethro Tull, comes into play, starts singing the lyrics, which of course are very beautiful, kind of Shakespearean type poem, and then follows by electric guitar and the drum comes into play. Now with that music, of course, the Sony again prevailed, hands down. Again, the accuracy of the sound of the flute is very flute-like, I gotta say. With these two, I don't know. It's the Pioneer, of course, is very close to Sony, but with KEF again, it was just not that great of an experience. So, especially when bass comes into play. So, with bass, people claim that the Pioneer is a warm sounding speaker, meaning that it's tuned to be biased towards the lower frequency sounds, lower frequency tones, whereas Sony is more neutral sounding. I can attest to that. Sony is more neutral sounding, but of course, that's testament to how accurately it sounds, and it delivers in the most accurate sense of the word. The flute exactly sounds like the flute. The bass sounds exactly like the bass. And everything just blends in well together. Which is kind of it really surprised me, because I was really thinking that, as I said, the criterion by which we should judge the quality of the speakers is really the price. So a more expensive speaker should, by theory, sound better than a less expensive speaker. But I think the reason as to why this Sony speaker is pretty cheap is because a company like Sony is kind of standing behind it. They can afford to sell this pair of speaker at a very, very affordable price. Of course, you get these special deals. You can have them for less than $70. At this point, I think the price is close to $170, $180, which is a little bit expensive compared to what I paid for. Of course, is twice as much as what I paid for, but still pretty affordable compared to KEF. So this is $300, and with tax and everything, I think you're going to be paying close to $340. Of course, at this point in time, it's 50% off. So the price at which KEF tried to sell these was $600. I don't think that these actually play at $600. That's pretty expensive. Now, the Pioneer, I got them on the used market for about $40. I think they were originally priced for $120, and that's a very good price for that level of performance you're getting from Pioneer. So I used Pioneer for my main system, which is in my own room. In our living room, I used the Sony speaker. But what I gotta say is that I'm gonna recruit the Sony back into my room actually and put it as part of my main system. It just sounds fantastic. And one thing I gotta say is that I've alluded to that in my previous videos as well, that the way I try to improve my system is through continual improvement. Now, there's a difference between continually improving your sound system and continuously improving your sound system. Now, continuous improvement entails really just switching out your gear at will without having any justifiable reason to do so. And you just buy gear for the sake of it. One day you just go out and spend $1,500 on a pair of KEF LS50 because you could afford to do so. And if you're someone who's got access to unlimited amount of cash, you could go out and shell out maybe $40,000 for an integrated amplifier by Nagra, which is a Swiss-based company. So I think for a preamplifier and an amplifier, you'd be paying close to $40,000. And you do that for the sake of it, because you can afford to do so, as I said. But in my case, I only recruit new gear into my system, as part of my system, if a lack with regards to sound quality is shown and improvement really is proven to be necessary. So that's continual improvement. So you enjoy your system, you don't change anything, but then when you notice a deficiency in your system, you try to improve upon that. So in my case, after I listened to Sony again, I came to the realization that at this point in time, my system is pretty well balanced. I've got the NAD 350 or 370, I gotta say, integrated amplifier. From that, I have, well, basically I gotta go back. I get a CD player, beautiful carousel style CD player by Pioneer. And with the digital audio out, I have that connected to my RCam, RDAC, and then the analog output from the RCam, RDAC goes into the input of my integrated amplifier by NAD 370. Also have a very good turntable by Denon. It's a fully automated system. I didn't pay much for it. It's made out of plastic, but it sounds great. It's equipped with a Shure cartridge, and it sounds great. I also have access to a great DVD player by Sony. That's the one that the face actually kind of lifts up and down. I forgot what the model number is, but it's built like a tank. It weighs a ton, and the DAC that's built into it sounds fantastic. For streaming, what I use is a Chromecast audio that's connected to a sound separator that really, is it a sound separator? Well, it's a sound extractor, I gotta say. Well, extracts the audio and video, so you can have that connected to your DAC. The DAC I use for streaming is my topping E30, and from that, I have it connected to my NAD. So it's a pretty complete system, and I'm pretty happy at this point in time. This proved me again that, well, grass is not greener on the other side. In the speaker department, I'm pretty well served with this Sony speaker. Now, I made a video actually quite some time ago, I think it was back in September of 2020, in which I showcased my really secondary system, which consisted of an NAD, I think it was 910 integrated amplifier, and then it was connected to a pair of Sony speakers. And somebody commented on that video that, well, the system you're showing is not audiophile enough. Now, that is a very interesting statement. Now, how do you define a system that is audiophile enough? Is it the price that determines the quality? Is it really how you've put it together? So the criterion by which you judge whether a system rises to the dignity of being an audiophile system or not, to a lot of people, is the price. But I have to tell you that it's not the price, because these pair of Sony speakers, you can get them really for almost next to nothing. Of course, as part of holiday deals, you can probably get them for $60, $70. Now they're priced for $140, $150. I think that's still a pretty fair price for speaker of this caliber, speaker of this quality. But price is not the most determining factor when it comes to audiophile gear. So for the kind of music I listen to, for classical music, for progressive rock music, Sony clearly prevails over the KEF and its Andrew Jones design Pioneer counterparts. But for the kind of music that you might listen to, the story might be different. And if you ask me, well, how does the KEF 150, Q-150 sounds compared to a pair of Klipsch kind of horn style speakers? I can't answer that question because I've never owned a pair of speakers made by Klipsch, so I can't really comment on that. I can only comment on gear that I have experience with. And these three speakers, I had them all at once. Of course, these two I've already owned, and this is the newcomer, which of course is going to get sent back because I'm not really happy with the performance. And yeah, so Sony will really be part of my main system, and Pioneer will be recruited back into my secondary system. And then unfortunately KEF 150 is going to have to get sent back. Anyways, thank you very much for watching my video. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. It's an enormous honor that you're subscribed to my channel. I have more interesting and more exciting materials to come in the future. Please comment below what you think of this comparison and whether what I've told you is a fair comparison or not, and whether you have experience with these three speakers and how you would actually compare and contrast them. Again, thanks very much. I really appreciate you watching this video. Have a pleasant evening. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Take care.